Hello and welcome to a new video on the channel. Today it is the top 10 Jon Pertwee stories, and as you saw about a month ago I did my top 10 Patrick Troughton stories, so go check that out. And yeah, I decided to do a top 10 Jon Pertwee stories as well, because lately I've been very sick, so I've had time to watch a lot of my DVDs, and that includes the Jon Pertwee era, and so I decided to do that, and hopefully you guys enjoy this video, because I know a lot of you enjoyed the Patrick Troughton one, so yeah, this is going to be fun, hopefully. Right, before we get into business, patreon.com/Genesis of Androzani if you'd like to contribute to the channel. We have multiple tiers, such as the Timey-Wimey tier, which gets you early access to videos and exclusive access to videos, and the Master tier, which gets you all of that, plus requesting a video for us to do. Twitter.com/Giandrozani if you'd like to get in contact with us or just check out what we're talking about. Lately, I got a reply from the legendary Robert Sherman, so it's quite amazing sometimes what can happen on Twitter, but yes, go check that out if you would like to see what we're up to and what we're talking about in regards mainly to Doctor Who. Now, before we get into this top 10, I'd just like to preface I have not seen The Mutants, The Time Monster, Death to the Daleks, or The Monster of Paladin. The reason why is because I'm saving those for the Worst of Classic Who series so that you guys can see my reaction to those stories, and based on the fact that they are unpopular, it seems highly unlikely that they would be in my top 10, so I think I can confidently say that this is my definitive Jon Pertwee era top 10 stories, but you never know, maybe one of those four will end up on the top 10, but I will let you know when I've seen that story in the video that we watch it, if it is. But for now, this is my definitive top 10 Jon Pertwee stories. Okay, starting at number 10, we have the underrated The Mind of Evil. This is a gritty and action-packed story. For me, this is probably the Master, Roger Delgado's Master, at his best. He feels straight from the Mafia. He's smoking cigars, he's in the back of limousines, he's wearing disguises, and he's manipulating people to kill each other. He is gentlemanly towards the Doctor and Joe Grant. It is brilliant. Roger Delgado in The Mind of Evil is unbelievable. I love him in it. Joe Grant as a character, this is her second story, and within 2 stories she's already matured. She's excellent in this one. The way she bounces off the Doctor, it is ideal for what you would want from a companion in a story. Joe Grant is brilliant in The Mind of Evil. The Chinese plot in this story is handled very well. This story came out at the same time as the Cold War, and it has a Chinese plot in it. It doesn't have a Russian plot, but it does have the Chinese involved in it, and unlike a lot of other Doctor Who stories that involve the Chinese, such as The Talons of Wang Chiang, which is arguably, to a lot of people, is quite racially not handled well, I think in The Mind of Evil this is actually handled very well. It doesn't depict the Chinese as this, racial stereotype. They are actually portrayed particularly realistically, considering the circumstances. I like their involvement in this story, and the fact that the Master is manipulating 2 different people who are at war to kill each other is excellent. It creates so much tension, and it makes the story feel very mature, and it's almost commentary on real-life circumstances, but it's not shoved in your face. It's actually quite well handled, and that is just a result of Don Houghton's writing being so clever. The concept of the machine in The Mind of Evil is very similar to a boggart from Harry Potter. For those of you who haven't seen Harry Potter, there is a concept in Harry Potter called the boggart, which is a shapeless magical form that takes the visual form of your greatest fear. In this story, we see both the greatest fear of the Doctor and the Master from this machine. From the Doctor, it shows the Daleks, which it makes sense, because obviously the Doctor's biggest fear is the Daleks. But even better than that is the Master's biggest fear. When he is brought into the machine, his biggest fear is a visual of the Doctor standing over the Master laughing. That is brilliant character storytelling. The fact that it exposes how insecure the Master is and how obsessed he is about getting one up on the Doctor, about their rivalry, and how, I love it, how the Master always wants to come out on top of the Doctor. It's like a competition to him. It's the perfect example of show don't tell, and I love that. And of course, Jon Pertwee is on top form in this story, as is Unit. This is very reminiscent of Season 7, even though this takes place in Season 8, and it is an action-packed, gritty, adult, mature story, and I just love it. Number 9, The Time Warrior. This is such a monumental story. It is the first appearance of Sarah Jane Smith, who has gone down as one of the most popular, if not the most popular companion in the history of the show. She is excellent in this, characterized as a journalist. The way she enters the story and the way she sort of matches the Doctor when they first meet is excellent, and I love the way she plays the journalist in the story. It's not irritating, it's actually very, very endearing, and I love the way that she is introduced into Doctor Who is such a creative way to introduce a companion, and Elizabeth Sladen obviously is brilliant in the role. This is also the first Sontaran story, and arguably the best Sontaran story. Lynx is very funny but menacing at the same time. It is a portrayal of the Sontarans that is not played for a joke. It is genuinely the fact that this character is comedic because he is so snarling, and the way he reacts to all the characters around him and what's going on is comedic, but it's not. We're not laughing at the Sontaran, we're laughing with the Sontaran's humour, and I love that. But also the fact that the Sontaran in this story, Lynx, is so menacing and deadly. It is, in a lot of ways, maybe not to the same extent of extremities and aggression, but I always say that the Time Warrior treats Lynx the Sontaran almost a similar way that Dalek treats the Dalek, where there's only one of them, but it shows the power of this Sontaran and what it can do. And I really feel like that the Sontarans have never felt as threatening since the story. The way that the Sontaran is introduced in the story is awesome, and without Robert Holmes' brilliant writing in The Time Warrior, the Sontarans wouldn't have become such an iconic villain, and the way they're handled in this is basically perfect. This story is also the first mention of Gallifrey, but it's not a big part of the story. It's just an offhanded comment in a conversation, and I love that. It's so creative, a creative way to just add Doctor Who lore into the show. It's not given to you on a red velvet pillow, it's just mentioned and you're like, oh, wait, the Doctor's planet is called Gallifrey, and this hasn't been mentioned before, and it's just passed off like something normal. I love that. It makes sense for the characters within the story. Obviously, part of the reason why all this works is because Robert Holmes is one of the best Doctor Who writers of all time. His handling of the story is brilliant, the way he balances it being a pseudo-historical, so you've got the medieval times mixed in with a Unit story, and there is time travel between them. The way it blends 1970s contemporary Doctor Who with medieval historical with the alien Sontaran, it all meshes together so well, and it's brilliant. And I love the side characters that the Sontaran meets, the medieval side characters. They are hilariously over the top in camp, but they're so awesome. And of course, Jon Pertwee is on top form in this story, absolutely stealing the show. He's brilliant. This story, to me, The Time Warrior, is essential viewing, and a lot of people probably already know this because The Time Warrior is generally regarded to be a great story. So you all probably expected this to be in the top 10 anyway. Go check it out. The Time Warrior is brilliant, and it's why it's at my number 9. Number 8. Doctor Who and the Silurians. A very odd choice for a title. This is the kind of title of an episode that you would expect from a novelization. It is slightly odd that it's called Doctor Who and the Silurians, but it's a minor nitpick, mainly for two reasons. Number one, a lot of people just call it the Silurians, which is fine. And also, the fact that this story is absolutely brilliant, which is why I can forgive the weird title, because this is one of the best Doctor Who concepts, especially for a political story, as it puts the entire human race in a new perspective. This is shades of grey stuff from Malcolm Hulke, who is one of my favourite Doctor Who writers ever. Obviously, he wrote The War Games with Terrance Dicks, and The War Games is my favourite Doctor Who story ever. So, in general, I love Malcolm Hulke's writing, and the fact that this tribal and barbaric indigenous reptilian race that were around during the dinosaur times, the Silurians, the fact that they are so barbaric, yet their reason for wanting to be on Earth as its rulers is actually justified because they were here first. And that really is thought-provoking, because there are countries in the world where there are indigenous cultures that were invaded by, or maybe not invaded, but they were taken over by a different, usually European, but a different part of the world. So for example, in Mexico there were the Aztecs, but then the Spanish became the main population of Mexico. So the Silurians are basically Earth's indigenous culture, and it puts all humans in the perspective of, well, the humans are taking away the Silurians' home, which is such a brilliant idea for an episode, because it makes you battle in your mind of, well, both sides have a reason for, their point of view. And the fact that, another thing about the Silurians is the fact that they look so alien makes it so hard to relate them to humans. Unlike New Who, which made the Silurians look more humanoid, this story, they are so alien, it easily makes you feel that they are different to you. They are so different, yet because the story is written so well, it makes these grotesque looking dinosaur, reptilian, alien, humanoid creatures, the fact that they look like that, but the story makes them justified. I think that is excellent writing. And also, this is a great unit story as well. The arguing between the characters on the moral dilemma is brilliant. It is one of the things that carries this through 7 episodes for me, is the fact that over the story, all of the perspectives of Unit, like the Brigadier, like the Doctor, like the outside influences, the one-off characters, particularly the one, can't remember his name, but he's the one who's basically, we need to get rid of these creatures. All of these perspectives into one story really creates a developing narrative, and I love that. It's so great to see them bicker over this. And Liz Shaw as a assistant or companion, whatever you say, is brilliant in this. She is utilized excellently, obviously showing off her skills and her knowledge, and I just love the way that she fits into the story and season 7 as a whole, because I think season 7 is one that is very straight to the point, and it's very impactful, and there's not a lot of mucking around. Liz Shaw is ideal for that, because she is in herself very accomplished and intelligent, and the fact that you not only get the Doctor, who is exploring parts of this story, but at the same time Liz Shaw is also doing that, creates a double plot, and it creates multiple things that are going on at the same time, and that is great. And also the ending of the story where the Brigadier blows up the Silurians is such dark twist, and it really impacts the Doctor as a character, and it really shows the difference between the Brigadier and the Doctor, and the fact that the Doctor's entire moral compass was around the fact that there needs to be peace between these two races, and the Brigadier just didn't listen to him, and he just killed them anyway. It is such a shocking climax to this story. Doctor Who and the Silurians is excellent, and that's why it's at my number 8. Now, at my number 7, we're going to go for another underrated story, and I think that's going to be a common theme for this list, as it was for The Mind of Evil, and probably even more so with this one and some of the others. This, to me, is so underrated. Invasion of the Dinosaurs. Going back to Malcolm Hulke again, this, to me, the invasion of this story feels absolutely real. The atmosphere is so rich. As soon as the Doctor and Sarah Jane come back from being in the Time Warrior, they are in this basically deserted London, and the whole discovery of the looters and the pterodactyls and the dinosaurs is awesome. I love it. I love everything about that. And then you get the entire plot that kicks in once Unit and the Doctor come together. Obviously, before that, we get the Doctor and Sarah Jane are captured by the law enforcers because they are criticized as being looters because they stole a car that had loot in it. I love that too. There's some great comedy in there. It's brilliant. But for me, the best part of the story is the fact that this is basically a Unit civil war, with Mike Yates becoming a grey villain, and the motivation behind this story is almost Thanos levels of dark, where you've got this group of people who are against the whole idea of overpopulation, and they want the world to go back to its golden age, which is so messed up. The fact that they are trying to invent a way to reverse time so that the people that are living now don't even exist and they survive, so that there are less people in the world, so that the people that are alive can live a rich life. This is such a dark concept, but it's something that actually happens in real life. It is chilling. The fact that one of UNIT's most lovable and trustworthy members, Mike Yates, becomes part of this group is insane. I love the dilemma in him, the fact that he wants this project to work out, but he also doesn't want people at UNIT to die like the Doctor. But the fact that the story revolves around these dinosaurs, which is so dangerous, it creates so much tension, because you get a scene like when Mike Yates puts a device on the Doctor's stun gun so he can't stun the dinosaurs, because he doesn't want the dinosaurs to go away, because this is part of the project of doing what they're doing. But then because he puts it on the stun gun, the Doctor is now in danger of dying from this dinosaur attack, and Mike Yates has to take it off the stun gun and use it. It's such a great dilemma. I love it so much. Sarah Jane as well is on top form in this story. The way she is using her mind to figure out all the loopholes and all these people that are part of this plan. But then along the way, she's trying to tell people about this and warning them about these people that are part of the plan, but the people that she is warning are also part of the plan, and she ends up getting captured multiple times, like when she's put on that imaginary spaceship where she's told that she's been there for 3 months. That is awesome, and the fact that it's all fake. It reminds me of Enemy of the World, with all those people that are underground from Salamander. And honestly, I really don't think that this story should be slagged off for having shit-looking dinosaurs, because I feel like that's the one thing that people really remember about the story, and why people don't like the story is because of the effects on the dinosaurs don't look very good. I would love to see like a CGI remaster of this with better-looking dinosaurs, more ferocious. I think if they could make the dinosaurs look really convincing and really dangerous, I think people would be more accepting of this story, because aside from the technical faults, I think the writing of this story by Malcolm Hulke is excellent. I love Invasion of the Dinosaurs, and I think it deserves to be in this top 10, and that's why it's at my number 7. I love it so much. At number 6, we have another Robert Holmes story. It's Carnival of Monsters. This is so unlike any other Pertwee story. This feels like a combination of like a 60s Who creative story on top of like an early Big Finish story, but it's got alienness like a Tom Baker story, yet it's got John Pertwee in it, who you would expect to be completely out of his depth in this kind of story, but he completely makes it his own. I was so pleasantly surprised when I watched this for the first time the other day, and it is awesome. Carnival of Monsters is creative, wild, imaginative, and brilliant. The fact that it's got the time loops with the historical ship that was lost in I think it was the Indian Ocean. I love the fact that it's got time loops, the way it unfolds, the fact that you think that this is a historical on this famous ship, yet there is time looping, it's going over and over and over again. I love that because it makes the story unfold, and when you realize that it's not actually this historical event, it is this historical event taken out of time and put into a miniaturization for a carnival to entertain people, is so creative. I love it so much. It's almost like a combination of Planet of Giants and The Chimes of Midnight. Two stories that I love the creativity of, blended into one brilliantly by Robert Holmes. And this was back when Chimes of Midnight hadn't even come out, so this is a concept that Robert Holmes has come up with in sort of the brink of sci-fi and concepts coming to television. I love it. And also the comedy in this is off the charts. It is so funny, just the wit and like the sort of almost metatextual humor of people that are like these characters that are using this miniaturization as for a carnival. The fact that there is other there are other groups of people doing the same thing, but they are mocking them for their own style is awesome, and the fact that they are paralleled by this alien race who has no understanding of what they're doing is so funny. And also the fact that not only have we got the historical ship with all those characters on it, which by the way has an appearance by the actor who plays Harry Sullivan later on, by Ian Marter, and he's great in that, but also the other side of it, the battlefield sort of thing with the lake and the Drash Eggs. And the Drash Eggs is a monster that could have easily not worked in execution, like the Dinosaurs in Invasion of the Dinosaurs, but I think the Drash Eggs actually work really well, despite a little bit of dodgy chroma key, but I think the Drash Eggs are very awesome and scary, and I love the iconic scenes with John Pertwee using a sonic screwdriver to blow up the ground. It's just such a memorable bit of Doctor Who. Carnival of Monsters is awesome. It's so creative, it's so watchable, and it really feels before its time, and it really shows some of the talent that Robert Holmes had early on that he would then implement later on in his stories. Carnival of Monsters, love it. At number 5, we have The Three Doctors. This is one of the most well-planned and pieced together stories. I love it. It is the ultimate form of fan service. It is everything that you could possibly want after 10 years of Doctor Who, almost. The idea of bringing the three Doctors together is such a brilliant concept for an anniversary celebration, especially considering the way that Patrick Troughton enters the story and interacts with all the characters, and especially the third Doctor. It's so awesome to have all these Doctors together. Unit are awesome in this story. Just the comedy for this story is off the charts, especially for Unit with Brigadier and Sergeant Benton and the way they are reacting to the things going on in this story, especially with Patrick Troughton's Doctor entering it. And just, it's golden. Like, all of the comedy in this story is so meticulously planned out, and it feels like every single step of the story is so well executed and well planned out, and it's so well structured, and every single detail is filled to the brim with charm and humor and plot. And it's I love the Three Doctors, not only just for that comedic value, but also Omega is a brilliant villain. Brilliant idea for a villain, that especially not only just for the way he looks, but the fact that he is the Time Lord that invented time travel is such a great way to pay off 10 years of Doctor Who, is giving you this character who is so important to the lore of Doctor Who, and just the fact that he is in this antimatter universe and he was brought there by his own invention, and he wants to come back to our universe, but he can't because his only form is created by his will, but he actually doesn't exist physically. It's only by his own power. And I love that. And I think that some of the Doctor Who lore that's created in this with the Time Lords is so awesome, in the fact that they decided to do it for an anniversary special is rewarding, because it's the most mysterious part of the Doctor's character is his backstory and where he comes from, and the fact that they are giving it to us in these important anniversary stories is a great idea, especially considering that this is the story where John Pertwee's Doctor gets his time travel power back, and it pays off the arc from the War Games to now, and it really is the perfect time to do it. The Three Doctors is, for me, whilst I can see the argument that this story is quite basic in its structure and its execution, I think that it was such a great choice to have this kind of story be the anniversary. And really, the only flaw I have in it, which is not their fault, is that there's not enough of the first Doctor, because obviously William Hartnell was quite ill at the time. This was only a couple of years before he passed away, so his appearances are limited, and I love his appearances that he does have on the screen, but in an ultimate situation, I would have loved for the first Doctor to be more involved in this story, and that's the only thing that really holds it back for me, because apart from that, it's awesome. I love the Three Doctors. That's why it's at my number 5. At number 4, we have Inferno. It's intense, it's brilliantly written, brilliant performances, it feels bigger and more epic than the other stories around it, but it's really earned the way it's written. Its scale actually has believability to it. It is dark, probably one of the darkest Doctor Who stories ever made. It's gritty, it's action-packed, and the concept of the parallel universe, for the first time in Doctor Who, is explored excellently. It's the best time to do this because you've got an established cast of characters in unit, and having them be the parallel characters in this story is awesome, because the brigade leader, especially alongside with Liz Shaw and Sergeant Benton, evil versions of them in this story, is so good. And the fact that the Doctor is being plunged into this world with these people that he knows and trusts from his own, but are now his antagonists, is so awesome. It is one of the best ideas that Doctor Who has ever explored. The plot is amazing of Inferno, with the fact that the parallel world is destroyed because in our universe, well, the Doctor's universe anyway, there is this drilling project, and there is a bit of fear that it might cause destruction, and then the Doctor is plunged into this parallel world where the same drilling project is happening, but it's happening at a faster rate, and he sees that this drilling project leads to the destruction of that world, and the fact that he has to go back to his own world to save them from doing the same thing. It is awesome. On top of that, you've got fascist political undertones to the story that aren't heavy-handed. They're handled very well, with just, there were signs in the background, and just some of the motivations of the characters feel very reminiscent of fascist times like the war. Jon Pertwee is absolutely on fire in this story. I'm sure that he knew that this was a brilliant script, and he absolutely acted his heart out. This story is one of the ones that has the most action in it, particularly episode 3. And just the third Doctor is one of those characters that can carry you through this story that might be quite overwhelming on paper, but the way that he reacts to everything in the story and his straight-to-the-point attitude is so perfect for this story. And basically, it's Doctor Who in an apocalypse, and it's awesome. Inferno is absolutely brilliant. I think a lot of people probably have this as their number one Pertwee story, and I think I would say the only reason why I don't is because overall there is a sort of type of Doctor Who that I really enjoy, and there is a certain sort of magic to Doctor Who that makes it what I look for in the show, which is very prevalent in the Troughton era. And this coming right off that, I feel like maybe part of some of the straight-to-the-point sort of Earth-based Quatermass style Doctor Who is, whilst handled extremely well, especially in Season 7, it's not quite what I look for in Doctor Who at the very tip-top. But that being said, considering that it is going for a style that is generally not what I look for in Doctor Who, it basically is about as good as it gets for that style, and I applaud them for making a story that takes me out of my comfort zone and delivers in all spades. And I suppose the only other minor flaw I have is that the first couple of episodes take a bit to get going. It's a bit of a warm-up, but once the story gets going in episode 3, it's absolutely on top form. Inferno is brilliant and deserves to be my number 4 at the very least. Number 3, Spearhead from Space. Talking about Season 7, this story makes me wish that all of Classic Who was shot on film, because this on Blu-ray is absolutely gorgeous, one of the slickest productions in the history of this show. Not only that, but this is the ideal Doctor Who debut story for a new Doctor, written brilliantly by Robert Holmes. I really think that this is the story where Robert Holmes really came into his own, and this was the story that put him on the map and made him famous, because before this with Robert Holmes, we had the Crotons and the Space Pirates, which even though I haven't seen, I've heard that they are very unpopular stories, but this one, Spearhead from Space, absolutely knocked it out of the park. The Autons are scary and horrifying, and one of the best Doctor Who monster concepts ever made. Unit becoming full-time is brilliant because their appearances in the Web Affair and the Invasion were awesome, so having them become a full part of the story, particularly with the Brigadier, is such a brilliant idea, especially considering that the Doctor was exiled to Earth from the War Games, and now that he has to be part of Earth full time, he now has to become the scientific advisor to UNIT. It's so awesome. This is one of the most well-written, well-performed, and well-executed stories in the entire show. It's iconic, and really, the only flaw I have with it is that the ending of the story is perhaps a bit basic, because apart from that, it's almost flawless. Like, Spearhead from Space is one of the best executed Doctor Who stories probably ever. Absolutely awesome. I love it. And it's at my number 3. I could watch Spearhead from Space over and over and never get sick of it. Number 2. Now, this is a story that I watched for the first time this week, and holy hell is this underrated. Frontier in Space. Malcolm Hulke, as I've stated, is one of my favourite Doctor Who writers. And for me, one of the biggest reasons is, I think a good writer comes up with awesome ideas. I think a great writer comes up with padding to a story that is not only entertaining, but it is significant and thought-provoking. And then you get Malcolm Hulke, who does both. Cool ideas and awesome padding. And that is, for me, one of the essential things that makes you a great writer. Malcolm Hulke is a master of this, with his morally grey political undertones, with his entertaining television, with his ambitious ideas, with his grand scale. This story, Frontier in Space, is an epic journey through space. I love the dynamic between the humans and the Draconians, the fact that they are misled to each other being into a war from a misunderstanding, because of the deception that the humans, they see the Draconians as Ogrons, which we had seen earlier in Day of the Daleks, and the Ogrons are obviously a very aggressive, mercenary, sort of hired gun race, and the fact that there is this machine that creates a deception in your mind that you are seeing something that you are not is brilliant. And because of the fact that the humans think they are shooting Ogrons causes the Draconians to fight back and create this war is so messed up, but I love it. And the way it's resolved with the humans and the Draconians, the fact that there is so much struggle, because the Doctor and Joe Grant are thrown into this political story, and no matter what they say, neither side will believe them, and the humans think that they are spies for the Draconians, and the Draconians think they're spies for the humans, and no matter what they say, they will, if they say that this is not the truth, they will say, "Why aren't you telling us the truth?" And there's a great scene where the humans put the Doctor under a lie detector, and obviously he is telling the truth, but even though there is this lie detector that is basically foolproof, that is telling them that he is telling the truth, that he is not a spy for the Draconians, the humans still don't believe him. And I love that they are so absolutely driven in their ways by what they have seen about their views on the Draconians, that they will not for 1 second believe that the Doctor is telling the truth, despite the fact that there is a machine that is proving it, is such a great mirror to extremism on political stories and war. And the fact that it's revealed that the Ogrons are being, you'll see later on that there's another twist to this, but it's revealed in episode 3 that the Master is behind this, and the Master is causing all of this war. I was saying before in The Mind of Evil how he was causing the British and the Chinese to kill each other. In this story, it's amplified that tenfold with the humans and the Draconians. The fact that the Master is using this machine to create this Ogron deception is such a brilliant idea for a plot, and the Master, Roger Delgado, is on his best form in this story, and the way he handles it, the way his interactions with Joe and the Doctor and all the characters is awesome. I love also, and a lot of people criticize this story for padding, but I love the deviations of the story and the world building to amplify the scale of it. There is the story of the Doctor where he has been taken to the moon on that prison, and what I love about that is it shows the impact that this war has had on the humans and all of the misunderstandings that have taken place. It is awesome. And you get this whole storyline with the Doctor on the Master's spaceship trapped in a cell, but just all of the space battles and all of the traveling that goes on, and all of the deception and the way that the Doctor is sneaking out of the spaceship to try and get control of it and get the Master to, get away from the controls. It's brilliant, just the absolute determination for survival. I love. And then you also get, in part 6, you get the reveal that the Daleks are behind us. I love that. I absolutely love that, and I think this is so underrated because what this story does is it makes Doctor Who feel like it's living in this universe. I wish there were more stories like Frontier in Space, because this really makes Doctor Who feel so much bigger than what it sometimes feels like it is, and it's just brilliant. I love Frontier in Space. The only real issue I have with it is, well, two issues mainly. The first one being, similar to Inferno, the first couple of episodes, it takes a little bit to get going as the story is unfolding, but that is a natural part of the storytelling of this mammoth marathon. And on top of that, the only other problem I really have with it is the fact that it ties directly to Planet of the Daleks. And I don't dislike Planet of the Daleks necessarily, but I do think that when you consider these two stories linked together as one big arc, it is a little bit of a disappointing ending considering how awesome Frontier in Space was. But that being said, apart from that, I love Frontier in Space. I think it's so underrated, and for me, it absolutely deserves to be number 2 on this list of top 10 Jon Pertwee stories. Now it's time for some honourable mentions. We have Terror of the Autons, obviously. Terror of the Autons is a big story because it introduces not only the Master for the first time, it brings back the Autons, introduces Joe Grant, introduces Captain Mike Yates, but it's also just a really good story written by Robert Holmes, very entertaining. We also have the Daemons, or the Demons, however you want to say it. The Daemons was one of those stories that I used to slag off a bit because I don't really feel like gothic horror is something that fits the Barry Letts production style. But I rewatched it recently, and actually I will give it some praise. The Demons is actually quite a really enjoyable story, and the only real big sort of meh I have about it is sort of the way it ends. But overall, the Daemons is cool, especially with the Master, and some of the cliffhangers in that story are excellent. Day of the Daleks, this is quite a divisive one, I've noticed, but I really enjoyed Day of the Daleks. It feels, it almost feels like the kind of thing that you would see in a Stephen Moffat story. It's got the sort of modern day and past and future sort of traveling that the Time Warrior has, except this time I believe it's in the future rather than the past. Day of the Daleks I really enjoy. Not a perfect story, and it has some flaws in it, but overall I really enjoyed it anyway. Very entertaining. Then we have The Curse of Peladon, which is obviously a sequel to the first two Ice Warriors stories, but it's sort of like, almost like Frontier in Space, creates the sort of big scale for the universe of Doctor Who. I love the way that it brings the Ice Warriors and a bunch of other new groups that we hadn't seen before, like Alpha Centauri and the Peladon people, and also just a bunch of others. And the twist that the Ice Warriors are actually, there is a group of Ice Warriors that are actually good, is awesome. Curse of Peladon, really enjoy that one. Great political story and just very enjoyable. And then I'll also give a quick mention to Colony in Space, not because I think it's particularly great, but those of you who have seen our reaction to it on the Worst of Classic Who series, very underrated story. Has a lot of flaws from a production standpoint, like with the design of the, well, we called it the testicle baby, but you know, the one we're talking about, the one that looks like a sort of brain baby thing. And there's a bunch of issues with the way it's made. It looks quite stale, and there's wobbly robots and whatnot, and there's a lot of dialogue in there that is, if you're not into the whole political thing, it can get a bit boring, but I really enjoyed that. But overall, Colony in Space, mainly I give an honourable mention to because I think it's quite underrated, and don't think it deserves to be known as one of the worst Pertwees, because I think it is actually quite good, regardless of that. Okay, number 1. Now, I'm sure a lot of you who've seen this channel probably already know what this is. It's The Green Death, my favourite Jon Pertwee story. I call this Jon Pertwee's equivalent to the Dalek Invasion of Earth, because with the Dalek Invasion of Earth, you've got all of the things that make the William Hartnell era what it is, but with the Jon Pertwee era, I feel like the Green Death is very similar, but it's in the style of Jon Pertwee's era. It's a unit story with an environmental threat. It has a really cool Earth-based monster with the maggots. It also has a technological villain with the computer. It has great action, great comedy, great performances, a great script. It is absolutely cracking, on fire from start to finish. I love the ride it goes on. It is basically everything about the Jon Pertwee era, all the essential parts done at their absolute best. And Joe Grant's exit is one of the best in the whole show. Genuinely gets me emotional. It is very subtle and very well handled, and I think that it is the perfect cherry on top of the cake for the Green Death and her character as a whole. She is brilliant in it. Obviously, Katie Manning knew that this was her last appearance on the show, so she absolutely plays her heart out as an actress in this, and I think that it is so great for this to be her final story. And Jon Pertwee is on his absolute best day in this. I absolutely love the Green Death. One of my favourite Doctor Who stories ever, and it is my number one Jon Pertwee story, and probably always will be. It really, unlike, I would say, more than the other stories on this list, this really has a special place in my heart just for the experience that I had watching it. It was a very magical, wonderful experience, and I think that what I was saying before about Season 7 and the fact that it doesn't quite have the magical side of Doctor Who that I really love, this, The Green Death, has it in spades, and it is comparable to any other great Doctor Who story in my opinion. I absolutely love it. Number one Jon Pertwee story. Don't even know what else to say about it. It is just brilliant. So, tell me, what are your top 10 Jon Pertwee stories? Let me know what you think of my list. I've considered maybe doing some of these other top 10s for other Doctors. If you're interested in seeing that, then let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing this. I really enjoyed going through Pertwee's era, watching some of the stories that I hadn't seen before, and hopefully this video was enjoyable for you, because I know that there hasn't been a lot of Doctor Who uploads lately, and I'm very sorry about that. I'm trying my absolute best to organize reactions, reviews, etc. But sometimes it's outside of our control. So to give you guys something like this in between, just so that you got something Doctor Who related to watch from us, I think you guys deserve that, and I appreciate you guys sticking around whilst we have some of this off time. But hopefully things will pick up again and we'll be able to do more reaction reviews soon, such as Worst of Classic Who and other stuff like that, because that's the stuff that I really want to be giving you guys. But nonetheless, really enjoyed making this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on the channel for whatever video that is.